Hello everyone, my name is Andy and today I'll be demonstrating an educational tutorial on the implementation of uh, procedural content generation for this assessment. So what me and my partner have decided to do for this part of the assessment is create a random generated lootbox system upon a procedurally generated map, and each loot box will be guarded by a particular number of enemy AI depending on the rarity of the weapon that is within the loot box. So obviously this is building off the previous assessment of the AI behavior of the enemy character, and so we're using the behaviors to um, kind of create a state of guarding a loot box, and upon hearing a noise that is generated by opening a loot box, they would immediately investigate and will spot the player if they are within their sight. So in this assessment, I am responsible for creating the, uh, the generation of the loot box around the map, and my partner, Steven, will be in charge of uh, generating the number of enemy AI around each loot box. So I will provide a quick demonstration on how this works. So you'll see around this map there are a certain number of loot boxes, and we've programmed the class to um, generate a particular number, and this can be, we obviously defaulted this to 10, but this can be changed from 5 to 20 or more. So upon approaching near a loot box, you'll see a widget will open, it says open, and we press E to interact with it. And you'll hear a chest open sound effect, and a weapon is revealed. Certain rarity, so this can be collected. And obviously you have enemy AI spawning around, guarding each loot box. I'll demonstrate um, how they will react when they hear a chest open. They'll soon come and chase you until they're out of the sight range, and after that they will go on to patrolling around the map. So let's get started on how this would get programmed. So you first go to a C++ class, create a new C++ class, and called pickup manager. So in the .h file, we'll create a bunch of variables. We'll create a T subclass of a pickup weapon pickup class, and a T subclass a actor loot box class, an integer of total weapon spawns, an array of pickups called all weapons, and an array of actors called all loot boxes. We'll also need to reference to the AI manager script and create a new function called spawn weapon pickup. So upon the CPP file, we'll implement the spawn weapon pickup function and create a for loop that loops through the total weapon spawns integer. This would obviously loop for that certain amount of times. And what this does is it would find a random vertex on the procedurally generated map, and it will spawn a weapon and a loot box that would cover the weapon, and these is added to the respective arrays. And then we obviously call this function in the begin play. And that's all that needs to be done to generate random weapons around a map. And now we move on to the blueprints. So obviously after completing this, you can move this into the world outliner here, and you can change how many total weapon spawns can be put. We could change that to 15 if we wanted to. It will spawn 15 random loot boxes and weapons around the map. So we move on to blueprints. So we create a blueprint class called Lootbox, and it has a few simple components. We basically have a cube that represents the visuals for a chest, a widget, and a sphere collider, a sphere collision. So this would detect whether the player character is near the chest or not. So in this event, we have an event graph here that would mostly demonstrate how the widget will appear. So you see when I was near a chest, the widget will pop up, and whenever I rotate around, the widget would rotate as well. So it's always within view. So we have a sequence node here that leads to a cast to the player character blueprint. We set a player ref to the player character blueprint, and then after that it will be set visibility to the widget. Then we create a custom spin event based off the set timer by event, and we'll have that loop for 0.1 seconds. So this would go to set world rotation and will allow the player character for the widget to rotate whenever the player character moves around the chest. So you get each of the get world location, respective get world location, and have that fine look at rotation around the yaw or z axis. Then we have two overlap events called begin overlap and end overlap. So this would determine whether this will toggle the widget's visibility to true if it is interactable. So this is within the collision, and invisible when it's outside of the collision range. So that's all needs to be done for the loot box. So now we go to player character blueprint to implement the interact action. So firstly, up here, begin play, we have a sequence node. Well, the first one to hide gun, arms gun, and then the next one to set timer event for a line trace event. So the line trace is projected from the camera component, and it will essentially create a line trace, which will detect which it will detect which kind of actors that it is in contact with. So this line trace by channel we create from the custom event, and from the out hit actor have that link up to a cast to the Lootbox. So this essentially detects whether the camera is detecting a Lootbox actor. So after that is done, we go to implement the interact input action. So down here we have an interact node, and when it's pressed, and of course we'll check whether the Lootbox is valid and it is interactable. So once within its range, the condition will turn true, and once both branches are true, it would destroy the actor and would reveal the weapon inside. We also add a play sound at location, so it would play the chest opening sound when when it's interacted with, and it will be played from the location of the player character, so that enemies would detect where the source of the sound is coming from. So that's essentially all that needs to be put for a loot box mechanic that is randomly generated around a map. So how this would be implemented in the future assessment, which involves multiplayer and networking. We can plan. We obviously the team is aiming to create a series of tutorials on um, AI behaviors, procedural content generation, and multiplayer. So for the multiplayer aspect, we can kind of complete this project with adding more clients to this particular map, and have a four-player co-op. Kind of design the basic concepts of a four-player co-op game, where they can battle AI that have been generated around a map. So essentially, this would allow for a pretty fun game, and where they can find loot boxes, open them, and get new weapons, and at the same time be able to battle enemy AI, and obviously have like a win condition if they wipe out all the AI in an example. So yep, so this has been the tutorial for procedural content generation. Um, so I hope you learned a lot of what's about loot box mechanics and eventually enemy AI spawning. So thank you for watching, and see you later.